a local race car driver, Zach Heiser, who is part of what my friend Dan Beischer says is the most popular sport in Hillsdale County. Zach Heiser, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Dan and I have had a lot of long trips where we travel all over to go to Charger football and basketball games, and we get into this argument about what the most popular sport in Hillsdale County is. And I always say it's football. Football is the most popular sport in Hillsdale County. And he vigorously argues that auto racing is the most popular sport in Hillsdale County. He says a lot of guys you don't even know about are involved in not just watching racing, whether it be NASCAR on the professional level or local tracks, but also actually involved in racing, whether it be in a pit crew or helping out a friend or actually racing themselves. So we've always talked about getting a real live race car driver in for the show to kind of talk about the world, because I'll be honest with you, I don't know a lot about it. Mm-hmm. And Zach, it was cool to hook up with you and get to hear your story. You've been doing this since you were 10 years old.
That's correct. When I was 10, my father went down to a track over by the Indiana-Michigan state line called Montville Speedway, and there really wasn't an age restriction there. It was simply, does the person who's behind the wheel know what they're doing? Mm-hmm. And we went down there, and it turns out I knew what I was doing, and I knew what I was doing pretty well.
How did you know what you were doing? How had you prepared for that moment? It's
one of those things you hear about it. So and so athlete is just natural, and I've been labeled that before in newspaper articles and what have you. It's been, he got in the car and was just driving. It was natural. He knew what he was doing.
But before you got on a track, I mean, you had to have trained a little bit. They didn't just put you in a car and say, "Here, drive this thing," did they?
When I was growing up, went to the races with my dad, was always around it, and so racing has kind of been a thing that's been in the family, so I've seen it my whole life. Mm-hmm. But, I had a go-kart when I was little that I played with, at home. But as far as being on the big, real-life track, real-life race cars, that was pretty much it. I had the track to myself, went out there, and...
So were your parents concerned when you were 10 years old and you're out there driving around? Were they worried about you, or did they feel like you could handle it?
Oh, Dad was having the time of his life. My mom, on the other hand, was shaking pretty hard.
I bet.
It became fun. Once we knew that I was, all the safety precautions were taken, track was in good hands, I was in good hands. It's a dangerous sport at any level, but we take all the safety precautions, and we're pretty confident that we're all right.
Zach Heiser is one of the many local race car drivers and race car enthusiasts in Hillsdale County. He joins us tonight on the Time Out Show. In your second year, you racked over 100 wins up, and that's a lot of winner's circle time for Zach Heiser.
That's correct. We were still racing at Montville, and a win's a win, a W's a W, whether it was a busy night or whether there was only a couple cars in our class. But we always were running quick. We were one of those cars who you had to compete against. We were one of the front runners.
And what does it feel like when you're young and you start winning races? It has to help. It has to do a world of good for your confidence, doesn't it?
It was one of those things where, unlike a middle school football player, not all my friends were there seeing me do this. Right. I never really showed a lot of excitement. It was almost like, even at that young of an age, I felt like it was my job to go out there and win races and do good. Don't get me wrong, I was still having a blast, time of my life, but it was like, we're spending this money. This is my to-do list. My to-do list is to go out there and run good and win races.
Talk about the cars you were driving at that age.
At that age, we were driving true stock cars. They were 4 or 6 cylinder front-wheel drive vehicles. Pull them in the shop, give yourself 3 or 4 hours and, a welder, and you were about ready to go racing. Take out the interior, put it in a roll cage, here we go.
So no modifications to the engine to speak of, just go out there and race them.
Any little things that maybe you could get aftermarket, but nothing crazy like what we're doing now.
You went on from there, obviously. You used to run down at Evergreen Auto Park, which... apparently they don't have anymore, huh?
Correct. They were They were a new track that was trying to get on their feet,
right.
And with the economy the way it was, that was back in 2007. It just didn't take off. We had 5 to 10 cars a week that were there, but it wasn't enough.
How does that work, Zach, from a budget standpoint, even up into your racing today, where you go down to Butler? How do you afford to put the work in on the car if you have an engine problem or you need a repair? How do you pay for all of this?
A lot of it is scraping up nickels and dimes and returning pop bottles. And then the other part of it is a big thank you to all the local businesses that come on board. I go around personally. Since I started, I just had a chauffeur when I didn't have a driver's license, and personally talk to business owners, managers, whoever I could get a hold of, and explain to them, this is my football, this is my basketball, this is something I love to do, and we need help. And in return, here's a rolling billboard for you. And I mean, our starting sponsorships are $100, and that's good for a tire. So
the more sponsors, the better. You rack up as many as you can, and that helps you stay competitive. You're racing at Butler now. They're about ready to start the 2013 season. What have the years at Butler been like for you so far? I mean, that's big time. A lot of guys that I've known over the years have been interested in racing down there, and we've been to the Butler Speedways to watch before. That's exciting racing, and a lot of people really get into it. What's it been like since you've been racing up there?
It's been fun. It's been, a blast, and it's. I mean, that's the best way I can describe it. It's just a bunch of fun. We had a rough season last year with mulligans, we'll call them. We just couldn't shake them. But I mean, it's a sport where you got to try and get over that, and you got to come back. And one of the biggest things that we say around the shop and around the family is we're doing this to have fun. Right. If it's not fun, why are we doing it?
How old are you right now?
Right now I'm 18.
So you're 18 years old. You're racing Butler against guys probably twice your age. In a lot of cases, who have years and years of experience. Are you able to run against those guys and pick things up along the way? Have you learned a lot just by racing with some of those more experienced guys?
A lot of guys, if they see something that I've done, will have the common courtesy to pull me aside and say, hey, if you do this different coming into this corner, you'll get better, you'll get better results. And even when I was young, I mean, people were pulling me aside and saying, if you do this, you'll go further. As a matter of fact, I remember my first year racing, a guy pulled me aside and gave me a tip, and the next week I beat him, and he regretted it.
I bet. Because everybody's competitive down there around the track, and how much of it is, and I think about this on NASCAR races too, how much of it is the machine, and how much of it is the skill of the driver?
Well, that's one thing we talk about a lot too in the shop, is if you give a certain person so much power, so much of the right thing, you got to know how to use it, or you're no good. There have been times where I'm stuck behind a driver, and I feel that I can overtake them, but I quote unquote run out of engine. So I'd say it goes about 50-50, maybe a little bit more on the driver to be able to know what you're working with. And in the driver's head, you got to know what the track's doing to know what to do with what you've got.
It seems like in a NASCAR race, on any given race, 20% of the field will not even finish it. They'll have mechanical issues. They'll get caught up in an accident along the way. What's that number at Butler? How many guys actually finish each of the races?
I mean, I think you're going to look at about the same percentage. A lot of that is attrition, too, at any race. If you are stuck in the middle of the pack and one person cuts down a tire going into the corner, you better hang on, because you're going to have to drive your heart out to make it through that. And I mean, some of it's a luck game. Some of it, like I say, is talent. I mean, I'd say it's probably about the same. Attrition attacks anywhere it wants.
A handful of cars anyway don't finish on a regular race at Butler.
Right.
All right, so these wrecks. I wonder how a race car driver thinks about these wrecks, because I know, my friends, if we ever watch a NASCAR race, it used to be kind of cool, I think before Dale died. It used to be kind of cool to say, well, I just like to watch the huge wrecks. It's exciting to see the big crashes and the cars spinning around. I think some of that died down after Dale Earnhardt died, and what a tragedy that was for the sport. But as a race car driver, when you hear guys say stuff like that, we like to see the wrecks, does that upset you? I mean, do you know that that's part of the enjoyment that people get out of it?
I completely understand that that's part of the enjoyment, and I mean, it sucks is the best way that you can describe it, to be caught up in something like that, but it's part of the sport,
right?
And that's what makes the sport what it is.
So you take that all in stride.
I take it.
It doesn't
all
upset
for
you at all.
Nope, it's part of the sport to me.
Now, when you're about to get caught up into one of those, I mean, are you scared? Are you too busy to be scared? I mean, I think I would be scared if I knew I was about to go into this huge cloud of accidents. How do you handle that in that moment?
Well, going in, you try and find a way out.
Right.
You try and see.
And it's probably instinctual, right? At
right.
that point.
I mean, you know what to look for. You know if the wreck is happening on a banking of a turn, that a lot of the cars are going to slide down the track, and so you either go really low and hope for the best that you can get out of there, go really high and possibly go off the track, spin out, lose your track position, but not get caught up in the wreck, or hang on and hope for the best. I generally like to think that I think that through and make educated decisions. You know, I'm not just out there making laps. I make educated decisions when I'm racing.
Have you ever been injured in a race?
The most that I've been injured is I stressed my foot because the right front wheel come off of my car full throttle down the backstretch, and I went headlong into the turn 3 wall. And learning from my mistakes, I kept my foot on the brake trying to slow the car down before I made impact, and the pedal came back up, extended my foot the wrong way, and stressed my ankle a little bit, but that's the extent of it.
Zach Heiser's here. He's a local racer, races at Butler Motor Speedway. You'll see it there in a couple of weeks. You see a lot in the NASCAR level, and I don't know how authentic that is compared to what you do, but you see a lot of arguing, maybe during the week up to the race, maybe after a race. You'll see Tony Stewart go into Joey Logano's trailer and knock on the door. Sometimes you'll see actual fights break out. How contentious is it out there, and do those emotions kind of run high at some times?
Emotions definitely run high. It's another one of those things that we chalk up as being part of the sport, but we don't like personally in our race team to let happen. It's, you know, I've heard it kicked around as a joke that you went to a fight and a short track race broke out.
Right.
I mean, it depends on who you're racing against and the seriousness of what has went down. I mean, it happens. It does happen at Butler, but they are trying their best to keep it from happening. Butler has went as far as penalties, fines, points taken away, time away from the track, and it's one thing that directors of the sport don't want to see happen. But like I said, it's one of those things that does happen.
When you're out there at Butler, who's in charge? Is your dad in charge? Are you in charge? Who's calling the shots on race day?
We work very well together, especially the older I've gotten. For instance, when I come off of the track from our practice sessions or our first heat race of the night, I will give him feedback on what the car is doing and make suggestions to what I think needs to be done in order to make us be a faster car. And he'll put his input in. We'll meet in the middle, and we are generally successful. So
if he sees something during the race, are you hooked up so that he can talk to you with a radio even at the Butler level?
No, we are not.
You're riding pretty much on your own there.
Correct. Yep, that's one thing that is talked about, is that we're out there with, you know, full-faced helmets on, all this protective gear in a car where we can see maybe, you know, 5 inches out of our, you know, right and left sides. And it's a lot of listening. It's a lot of knowing who's around you. I mean, it goes back to almost being an instinct, you know, another sense that you pick up.
Zach Heiser is with us tonight. He races at Butler Motor Speedway. What speeds do you achieve at a good race at Butler when everybody's running good?
When everybody's running good, and I mean, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, listeners, but I'm pretty sure that in our class we exceed 70 miles an hour when the track's hooked up good. You know, cars are running good. And who knows how fast we'll run this year. You know, every year is a new step in a quicker direction for our sport as far as new equipment that you can have. So, I mean, we may even run faster than that this year.
What's the number one thing that you think about before you go into a race? Like when you're in the car, they're about to drop the green flag and start the race, and you're kind of thinking about everything you need to do. What's the biggest thing on your mind right before race time?
Right before they drop the green flag, I am prepping myself for what that first corner looks like, depending on where I start, how I'm going to make an entrance that is going to be effective and, you know, is going to get me moving up through the pack if I'm not starting up front. I mean, it's very dependent on where I'm at. If I'm in the back of the pack, I'm thinking about how I'm going to be conservative and not get in an accident. but still make my way up and have a chance to win. If I start up front, I'm thinking about how I can get a good jump on the start, get where I want to be going into that first corner.
Do you play video games?
I do.
Racing, simulation video games?
That's about it.
So, there was a big story on ESPN a couple of years ago that a lot of the top guys were starting to play PlayStation 3. They would plug in the course or the track that they were running that week and run it a lot, and that the authenticity of the simulation was pretty remarkable. Do you think there's any translation to playing video games to maybe helping you get even a little bit of an edge on race night?
I mean, I don't have the equipment that the big guys would have, but
right.
I do recall when I was younger that my dad walked into my room as I was playing a video game, and it just so happened that a wreck happened on the video game, and he saw it way before I did. And he said, you can take something from this. You can start looking further ahead than just 2 or 3 cars ahead of you, and you can see stuff happen before you need to react to it. And so I think there are some aspects that you can learn from it, especially nowadays with steering wheels and pedals and stuff that you can hook up to run on these tracks.
Zach, you made an interesting point earlier in the interview where you said, this is my football, this is my basketball. And we talk a lot on this program and in the newspaper about those varsity sports at the high school level. You obviously don't play or race for a school. You're kind of an independent contractor. You're kind of out there on your own with your team. How have your friends gotten involved, or have they ever come and watched you race at all? Is there any interest at your school about what you do?
People ask me about it occasionally. If we're on social media with Facebook. I have a Heiser Racing page on Facebook that my dad, my girlfriend, and I keep up on, posting pictures, posting status updates. So that helps. Friends, as a matter of fact, today I was asked whether or not we were going to make it this coming Saturday, and the answer to that is no, unfortunately, for those of you wondering. There's interest there. People know we do it. People know that it's my thing, and those who want to know ask.
A couple other things I was wondering about the races at Butler. How long is the race? How many miles do you run?
I'm not sure as far as miles.
How many laps is it then?
Laps, feature race, the end of the night, big show, just a normal race is, I believe, 20 or 25 laps. So.
And how long does that take to complete?
Depending, like we
Probably
said.
feels like 30 seconds.
Feels like, well, when you're leading, it feels like forever. That race
right.
can't end soon enough.
Right.
Running in the back of the pack, that race is over too quick. I think, if I'm not mistaken, we have a cap of a 20-minute race. If it's not over in 20 minutes, they throw the checkered flag. So usually anything less than that.
If you win a race, what do you get?
There's a payout, which is, it's one of those sports where you do it for fun. You don't do it to make money.
Right.
I mean, it's nice, to have some redemption. You get
put some dollars to put back into the operation, right?
Right. You get your picture taken with a checkered flag and a nice little handout of cash at the end.
What's next for Zach Heiser? You've been doing Butler for a couple of years now. What are your goals? What are your aspirations with racing?
Well, I got school coming up. This fall, I'll be going to college at Siena Heights University, so things are going to get tighter than they already were.
Yeah.
I've been talking to my dad with it pretty seriously. What are we going to do from here after this season? And we want to continue racing, whether we move up to a different class of car or whether we stay put and continue having fun. We'll just see where it takes us.
So in order to pursue a dream to become a professional driver, you'd have to invest quite a bit of money to get into bigger circuit and a bigger league or whatever the case may be. Is that really one of the things? It's not like you can just be really good racing and get discovered. You've got to have some money to put into it.
You'd like to think that you could, have somebody come out and see your race
right.
and say, "I want you to drive for me," which it does happen on occasion. Not so much here locally as you might hope as a driver for somebody to walk up to you and say, "I'm going to put all the money into a car for you to show up on Saturday and drive." That would be ideal. When I was, going back to when I was younger, it was a big dream of mine. Maybe somebody will see me and I'll run with the World of Outlaws before I'm out of school. Now I've kind of let go of that, kind of looked to what I'm going to do with my life in the future. And don't get me wrong, racing is still in it.
Sure.
So
I'm thinking that's got to be something that, I felt this way when I coached football. I'm thinking that racing's got to be something that once it gets in your blood, it's going to be kind of hard to get it out of there.
Right.
You know, I mean,
Yep.
that level of adrenaline and intensity, it's got to be really hard to give it up.
I mean, I as I told you, we're not going to be able to make it this Saturday, and that's killing me.
Right.
I mean, the fact that we are so close, but you can't, we're not. We know that it's not going to be feasible to make it out there this Saturday. That alone is killing me. I couldn't imagine having to quit altogether because of another circumstance.
You told me that you're getting into communications at school, and you're obviously very articulate, and I could see you not just racing, but perhaps broadcasting racing at some point.
I think that would be fun.
You're good at it.
That would be interesting. Yeah.
You really have a handle on the sport, and it would be good because you've done it, so you have that sort of experience behind what you'd be talking about at that point.
Sure.
And I think the sky's the limit for Zach Heiser. Good luck this year with your races, man.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Go get them. Go get those checkered flags at Butler. And again, on Facebook, it's
Heiser Racing. Just search Heiser Racing. It's a picture of my father and I. If you wanna PM personal message me, Zach Heiser. I don't know any of the fancy afterdash.coms.
We could probably like your Facebook page, though, couldn't we?
Yeah, definitely.
Well, the Time Out with Andy Brown page is about to like the Heiser Racing page tonight. And I want to thank you for coming in and talking about what you do, because I think it's a great story. It's neat to have a perspective about racing here locally, because we don't talk enough about it. And we're excited about following you this year. Now, will you post your results on your Facebook page so we can track how you're doing?
Every Sunday at some point, depending on how late the Saturday night ended up being, we do a weekend rundown, we like to call it, on the Facebook page. Let you know our troubles and our succeeds over the weekend. Knows where we finished and what our plans are for the rest of the week.
It's great to meet you, man. Congratulations on all of your success, and best of luck this year.
Thank you very much.
Zach Heiser from Heiser Racing. Check him out on Facebook. You can learn all about it right there on the World Wide Web.